Yeah, with all of the discussions about recent events at the Kloon, I've been thinking a lot about um, teaching methods in the martial arts and Sifu Todai relationships, and also about discipline, not personal discipline, but the Sifu disciplining students. And I just want to share a few thoughts regarding that. When I was growing up, my first Kung Fu Sifu was a physical disciplinarian. There was a time when I remember specifically when I tried to do like this jumping, spinning back kick that he hadn't taught me yet, that I'd seen in the movies. And he said, "Oh, no, no, this is how you do it." And he performed it on me with a good amount of contact, not enough to break my ribs, but enough to knock me back halfway across the room. Um, I'd seen him, with other students. On one occasion, my brother, for instance, he foot swept my brother, and my brother's went just right down on the ground, his head bouncing off the floor. Um, and my brother decided that's it for him. He doesn't want to do that training with that guy anymore. I recruited a lot of students into that training. Well, all of my friends, all of my childhood friends tried it at one time or another, and none of them wanted to, after their first taste of the physical disciplining, they didn't want to have anything to do with it, and they quit. Um, I remember there was another time when my Sifu used to keep all of his curriculum written in a book. What he wanted to teach for each rank and level and such, all the way through the system he'd developed. And so one time he wasn't in the Kloon, and that little notebook was there, and I just started looking through it to see what's going to come at the next level, that kind of thing. And then he came in and he found me looking through his book, and I got a lot of physical discipline for that. Um, there were times when he made me do physical training in ways that was really like one time he said you have to do 40 pull-ups, and so I maxed out, I think, at like 33 or 34 pull-ups, and let go of the bar, and he said, "No, you got to start over now. You got to do 40. I told you to do 40." And it would be stuff like this too. um, it was hard training, and he put me in my place if I needed to be put in my place. um, he'd yell at me or talk condescendingly at me when need be, but he was mostly a physical disciplinarian. If I stepped out of line, he was going to do something physical to really imprint on me the idea that I should not do that. Um, I know this is not the way that a lot of martial arts are taught now. I mean, another thing that he would do all the time was, if there was something I was doing wrong, it would get taken out on me in sparring too. And we sparred, medium to hard contact. And he was way beyond my level, and that was just the way it was. So, like I said, I know this is not the way of most schools now today. Just in the same way, it's no longer very popular for people to physically discipline their children at home. Certainly, I've raised my daughter. She's turning 21 in a couple of months, and I've never laid a finger on her in my life in terms of physical disciplining, neither my wife or I. We made a point not to do that. because we remember having that done to us when we were growing up and we didn't like it. And as a result of the way that, we've raised our daughter, she is a very good person. Like, she doesn't impose herself on others. She certainly has not an ounce of bulliness in her. I couldn't imagine her ever picking on anybody, or ever trying to use physical force to get her way. On the other hand, if she ever gets assaulted, and thank God she got through high school and all that without getting in any physical altercations, but if she ever gets in a situation where she's being assaulted, she's going to be in complete, absolute, entire shock and horror. So I don't know and she has no interest in training martial arts. That might help her in that regard, but she has no interest in it. So, in a way, I think we've done her good by keeping violence out of our way of raising her. At the same time, I can see where we've set her up for considerable pain if certain circumstances unfold in her life and she finds herself in some kind of encounter that's violent. But at the same time, it's not, I really don't feel like it's the loved one's position to be the first to make somebody experience that, so that they get used to being abused. We got a lot of violent people in our world. Society is messed up. What we see with MMA in the cage is, a sign of that, of the violence that's in us. And I don't think that raising people with violence, or raising people with anger, and I don't think that's good. It's certainly not my teaching method. I'm a professional teacher at a college, and when I have a student who's out of line, my method is they don't need to be taught by me anymore. I just start ignoring them. They don't want to be my student, I'm not going to be their teacher. That's the way it is with me. And it's very few students who be like that, but that's, when I do encounter a student that obviously doesn't consider me their teacher, then I'm not going to be their teacher. That's just the way it's going to be. But, in the martial arts, is it good to have this kind of physical discipline? Certainly, it's a part of it that's been there historically. Watch Enter the Dragon. Watch, in the beginning opening sequences, Bruce Lee is showing different things about the martial arts. And in one scene, he's having a business meeting, basically, and one of his students walks up and he stops his business meeting. He says, "No, it's my student's time." And because his student has a set time, and he's not going to break that, so he goes to meet his student, and he wants his student to learn something, but the way that he approaches his student in teaching him how to execute a kick, basically with freely, is he's very condescending to his student, and it's very obvious. There's the master, the Sifu, and the Todai kind of relationship between them. The student may be a senior student. That's the impression that I get, is that the student's been with him for a while, so he's getting the higher kind of teachings in terms of the physical aspects of the martial arts. And Um, but when the student does something wrong, Bruce Lee smacks him upside the head and says no. I think he hits him 3 times in under 2 minutes to correct him. And it's not that he doesn't like his student, but in that particular relationship, his teaching method, he feels like that's what he needs to do is use that kind of physical disciplining to really impress upon the student the lessons he's trying to give. On the other hand, when he himself meets with his own master, the relationship is different. But that's because he's himself has already matured and come into really a level of mastery of the art himself. And so the relationship is very different. It's loving and it's gentle, and the training is spiritual rather than martial. In the martial training, there's the physical disciplining. In the spiritual training, there is not. So, it's there. Is this going to work when you have adults training in martial arts, starting in martial arts as adults? I kind of don't think so. Even with kids, not really, because like I said, I recruited a lot of my friends in the martial arts when I was growing up, and none of them stayed in, and because of the kind of physical disciplining, and also the physical training itself was very hard. So none of them stuck around. Adults came and went, and I think nobody maybe stayed in more than a year. And I was there for 6 years before I left home to the Army. And I never saw anybody stay maybe more than a year. So it I don't know if it works. With children, it might work. I don't know if that's the reason why it worked with me then. I think if I was in the same situation now and somebody wanted to physically discipline me, I don't know if I would stick around. Even if somebody wanted to verbally discipline me and I felt like they were disrespecting me, I don't know if I'd want to stick around. I think what would make me stick around, though, is really the sense of commitment to this person as a Sifu. That's the thing that I think, that's the thing that kept me as a child growing up with the teacher that I had, because I knew that when he got physical with me, it wasn't because it was because he was trying to teach me with that, and I was very committed to being his student. And that's the way that it was. So if you're very committed to being somebody's student, if you're committed to having somebody as your Sifu, and you really see them as that this is a person that I want to learn from, then you're going to tolerate things you might not tolerate with other people, including verbal disciplining or physical disciplining, but also including other things, including they may certain ways that they view things and you may not agree with, but if that's not a really important thing, if what you're there to learn is much more important, then you overlook those things that you might disagree with. So that's the way it is, and it's the way it is with relationships in general too, where if you're going to have a close relationship with somebody, there's going to be things about them that you don't care for, but those things got to be overlooked, because the thing that you do care for outweighs it. So I don't know what my views are in disciplining the martial arts. If I, myself, if I was a Sifu, I wouldn't take that approach. Like I said, my own way of teaching is different. Um, I might use physical disciplining in terms of, you know, I might give them more physical training to do if they're out of line, something like that. But I generally, you know, I don't get verbally or physically abusive with people. My approach is more if if they don't want to be my student, then I'm not going to be their teacher, and that's the way it is. So, but that's mine. That's my approach, and other people are going to have other approaches, and I can appreciate that, and I can be a learner from people who have other approaches. I can be their student, um, because you know if there's someone that I really think I want to learn from, then I'm going to take them as they are, and that's just the way I am as a learner. So just some thoughts.